The latest ComfyUI update just dropped Wan 2.2 first last frame functionality. This means you can give it two references, a first frame and a last frame, to generate a video with way more control. The quality and movement take all the advantages of Wan 2.2 and, as you can see, makes a pretty smooth video. The bonus is you can also make use of Flux Kontext to set your frames up before generation. I'll show you how to modify the existing Wan 2.2 workflow to make it work. Let's get into it. Okay, no new models for this one, so we're just going to stay in ComfyUI. The first thing you want to do is just to update your ComfyUI to make sure that you're on the latest version, because that one is the one with the Wan 2.2 first last frame functionality. So when you open up Comfy Manager, just make sure you have the update on ComfyUI nightly version. That one will give you the latest pushes. And then after you select this one, just click Update ComfyUI. That'll go through the update and restart when it prompts you to, and then do a refresh of the browser window when it's all ready. After it's installed, you can check your version by going to Help, About ComfyUI. So after the update, I have the latest version, 0.3.48, and this is the one that you need. Another way to check again is if you go to Workflow, then Browse Templates, go to Video, and you should see Wan 2.2 14B first last frame to video. If you have this, that means you have the latest one. Okay, for the workflow itself, there's not much difference. So the base workflow that I have right now is the one from the previous video. If you haven't seen the Wan 2.2 video yet, I'll link it in the video description. You should check that one out for the setup before you get into this one. This workflow builds on top of the old one, so we're still using the GGUFs. It's still using the high noise pass, and then the low noise pass split on the steps that Wan 2.2 generally uses. Again, I've added a note here. You can bypass these two nodes, Sage Attention and Patch Torch settings, if it's giving you trouble. It works fine without them, so you can just click here and bypass if you don't need them. We're still using the light X2V LoRa's, and both of these go into the shift and then into each of the two K samplers. So the first one is for the high noise, and then the second one is for the low noise. No changes so far. There's also no change with the clip loader, so you still have the same text encoder. Still Wan, still CPU, and no change to the VAE, so you still have to use the Wan 2.1. There's no change to the prompts either, so you still have your positive and negative prompt. And then finally we get down to the part where there is a change. So the old image to video only uses one load image, obviously. With the first last frame, I've set it up so that there's two. What you do is you give it a first frame that you want the video to start on, then the last frame that you want the video to end on, and then a prompt to guide Wan 2.2 into figuring out how you want the motion to go from the first to the last frame. So for each of these two images, they go through a resize node, and then the two resizes go into the only new node that's in this workflow, which is the Wan first last frame to video. In this one, you'll notice that there's two image inputs. Previously, there was only one. So the start image plugs into the start image, and then the ending image plugs into the end image. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory. Your positive prompt goes into your positive prompt here. Negative prompt goes into the negative prompt. Your VAE gets plugged into the VAE. And then the outputs from this node, your positive prompt goes into both K samplers. So this one connects to the positive, and then also into this positive. So you'll see it leaving it twice. The negative goes into both as well. And then your latent image only goes into the first K sampler. So what happens is Wan 2.2 will come in and create the basic composition of the video and all the motion attached to it on using the first latent image. And then from there, it will pass it on to the second K sampler to fill in the details. And that's what the low noise model is for. So again, no changes to the actual K samplers. The first K sampler for the high noise to create the motions is still on a randomized seed. You want to add noise to this K sampler. We're still using 6 steps because of the light X2V. So 6 steps, CFG1, Euler, simple, start at 0 steps, end at 3 steps, so that's half, so 0 to 3, and then return with leftover noises on enable. The rest of that latent gets passed to the second one. This one you don't want to add noise, so you want to keep reducing the noise on the second one to add details. No seed for this one as well. And then you follow the 6 steps again, CFG1, same sampler, same scheduler, except this time you start at 3 and then end at a high number of steps. So 10,000 here, but it means it'll just end on 6 steps. And then from here, the latent goes to the VAE decode and then out into the video combine. It's still 16 frames, so you want to keep that the same, and then the video gets saved as is. So just for this testing, I used two images that I found on Unsplash of an F1 race. It looked like they were somewhat in sequence. So the first frame was a close-up of an F1 car, and then the second frame is more of a zoomed out shot, probably a little bit further along where the car has raced from, and then you have a different view. So what I did was I gave it this one as the first frame, the aerial shot as the second frame, and then I input the prompt. The camera tracks the red race car driving around the corner, then it zooms out into an aerial shot. A pretty simple prompt. And then from there, Wan does the rest. So you'll see it starts with this shot of the race car before it turns the corner. Then as it turns the corner, and then it does an aerial shot, zoom out into the second shot where it ends the video. So this was just one shot doing this on a pretty low resolution. So the quality isn't the best, but even from the first generation, you can tell that the camera does follow the prompts. So it does make the car go around the corner, and then it pulls out on the camera into the zoom out, into the aerial shot to end on the last frame, which is pretty good. Obviously, the better your two frames match in both lighting, composition, and just the details of the cars and all that kind of stuff, the closer a match it is, the better your video will look. So that's where Flux Kontext comes into the picture, and it's quite useful in first frame, last frame generation. So just quickly jumping into Flux Kontext, and again, I've made a video on Flux Kontext before, so check that out if you haven't seen it yet. But for Flux Kontext, it's a text-to-edit photo editor. So really, you give it an input image. You can also give it a second image and have two images referenced to create a final image. But generally, Flux Kontext is really good at maintaining kind of character consistency. So you can give it the first image of a reference character that you're looking for, ask Kontext to make a motion and keep everything else the same. But for this example in particular, I had the reference image, and then I had a jacket, and then the prompt was just to make her wear the jacket. So using the multi-image reference, I've got the final image, and that will be my end image, which I'll show right now as well. So let's take a look at some of the sample videos that I've generated. First, using the Flux Kontext to do a first frame, last frame. Then using Wan 2.2 to create the video between the first frame, last frame. So these two images, like I just showed you before, was done in Flux Kontext. I put this as your first frame, and then I put this as the last frame. And then the prompt for the video was the woman takes the brown jacket and puts it on. So pretty simple, and then we can see what the output looks like. So it does start with the first frame, and then she reaches off screen, grabs the jacket, and then puts it on pretty naturally, and then wears the jacket for the end frame. So it's pretty cool that I can do all that. There's a slight glitch at the end, if you notice, that the image just does like a weird kind of warp. I'm not sure why that happens. I think it's probably because your last frame doesn't exactly match. But I haven't tried it in depth or tried to figure out what's causing that. In an actual video, you can always just cut that last frame out. But the rest of the motion leading up to it is pretty good and pretty smooth. Here's another one that's also done using a first and last using Flux Kontext. Your first frame is the dune shot when they're in the desert. Then when I was testing context out, I put them in a snowy environment with snow covered all over them. So using these two, the prompt in between to get the motion was there's a snowstorm that comes and then it dumps a whole bunch of snow on top of the people. So what happens is Wan will take that prompt, and it looks like it does do it pretty well. Not really a snowstorm, but it does throw a bunch of snow on top of them and then changes the scene completely to the snow-covered one, all while maintaining kind of movement within the characters and things like that. So they're not just standing still and stiff. And then the last one, this one is not changing the context of the scene, but just changing kind of an ending movement. Most likely, this is what you'll be doing for Flux Kontext to create quick videos to use first frame, last frame. So the first frame, she's sitting there looking out the window. Her hand is on the mug. And the second one is just a very simple one. She's waving to the camera. She's looking at the camera now. And then the prompt just fills in what happens in between. So it really just says the woman looks at the camera and starts waving to the camera. And then the video generates exactly what that is. So she starts looking out the window, then she starts waving to the camera. You'll see some slight wobble again near the end. I think that's still the same problem as the first generation. That last frame just sometimes just does a warp or a resize or something like that, and there's something going on there. But again, if you cut that last frame out, then the rest of the video looks pretty decent. Obviously, this is pretty low res, so you'd have to upscale it. But in general, you give it 2 frames and then you prompt for how you want to transition, and Wan will do a pretty good job of that. So this is a pretty quick video just to show what you can do with the new functionality that ComfyUI has put out for Wan 2.2, and how you can also use Flux Kontext to help generate your 2 frames that you need. If this was helpful, give it a like and hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this, and I'll catch you in the next one.